This is the Week in Sustainability from Sustain.Life. It's where our team of sustainability experts and practitioners share commentary to keep you up to date on developing stories and news.
Hello and welcome to this installment of the Week in Sustainability. My name is Mitch Voss. I'm a senior director here in our sustainability team at Sustain.Life, and really excited to talk this week about the World Economic Forum annual meeting that took place in Davos, Switzerland. Talk about some of the positives, some of the negatives, what was and what wasn't talked about, as well as share a bit of insight and where we think the space is headed and what's going on in sustainability today. I'll start with the positives. One of the things that I think was really highlighted at this meeting, and one of the things that World Economic Forum and the members there really hit on was that the need for speed in this space. I think speed is crucial right now for both operational resilience within organizations and being able to make sure that they're set up for that transition and what we're looking at in terms of the effect of climate change, as well as financial performance. That, with the advent of ESG, what is happening in the sustainability space, that they're not at odds. Sustainability and financial performance are certainly linked, and quite a lot of talk during this forum that I think highlighted that in a way that really made it obvious of the interconnectedness of those two topics. Another concept that came up through this forum, and I think was highlighted in quite a few areas throughout the talks and the conversation, was around generative AI and how AI can be used both as a tool for good. And it's something that is certainly revolutionizing the way that we approach sustainability. It's something that is being embedded in all sorts of different tooling, in opportunities for organizations to really lean in to AI as a tool that can push the sustainability movement so much further. That it gives you access to things like data. It'll allow, certainly on the strategy side, seeing opportunities that it can highlight, areas within many different operations that it's going to be really neat to see what comes from AI, especially generative AI, and what it's doing with businesses. Another key concept that showed up quite a few different areas, and it's certainly a positive one, is the link of how imperative sustainability is for businesses and business success. It's something that definitely was highlighted through quite a few of the talks and what was presented there. That, in order to be working in this new world and the transition that's happening, sustainability should be at the forefront of a lot of organizations and part of what their success and strategy overall looks like. I also want to bring up that I think is a good one, especially for those that are working within an organization and trying to think about, plan for, and look at this transition. That there was quite a few talks and articles too that came out afterwards talking about how important a comprehensive approach is for that transition and how that can be so transformative for organizations. That not just taking strategies as piecemeal in planning for the transition and what we're seeing in sustainability and the effects of climate change on organizations, that really taking a top-down comprehensive approach is what is going to be successful for organizations. No longer, is it just a piecemeal approach that we're looking at just our energy efficiency or just renewable energy. That really stepping back and saying, what are the key material topics for our organization that need to be attacked or need to be approached in order for us to make meaningful progress and move the needle in the space. There's also highlights or positives around skill-based hiring and how that can be incorporated into matching the correct talent with various roles in an organization. I think that's a fantastic one to think further about in terms of an organization's strategy and how that is going to change and how that is going to affect overall success of businesses as we move forward. Another topic that came up that I'm going to put in the positive category was the link to and talk about the importance of diversity in leadership roles and how that's a strong business case or business strategy, even in challenging times. That having different perspectives, having the folks in the room with that different background, how important that is for businesses in terms of having a correct strategy in place in terms of making progress and moving the needle, both from a financial perspective, while at the same time being able to highlight various issues and things within an organization that can really be impactful and make a strong business case for that diversity in leadership. Uh, One more positive before we jump into the negatives. Want to highlight what was said around India and their transformative potential and how significant that is going to be in 2024 and beyond. India was highlighted as a place that has a lot of potential opportunity and can be a place for, on a global scale, us to really lean into and find ways to really move the needle again from a sustainability perspective as we move into 2024 and beyond, as we move through 2024 and beyond. Next thing I'll highlight is some of the negatives. I think that, I spoke first about AI on the positive side. From the negative side, there have definitely been concerns were raised about AI concentrating both power and there being inequalities in how AI is being used, but B, what is being presented through the use of AI. I think it's a really interesting topic to explore and something that will certainly have continued discussions around. I think that being able to address that and making sure that AI is being utilized in an equal opportunity way and not increasing inequality, but hopefully finding ways to use AI and making sure that it is set on an equal playing field. There were also highlights there again in AI about the potential biases that need to be addressed, that both in generative AI and what is coming in terms of responses, as well as what goes into prompts, can have biases associated with it, and how it's being used, how AI is learning, presents a particular challenge in what is happening there and how it's going to be used in the future. The other negative thing was highlighted in quite a few different areas was around the regulatory challenges and what's happening in sustainability reporting. That we're seeing, with the advent of the California regulations, with CSRD, with potential SEC ruling and what is coming down the pipe there, that there are going to be, and it's certainly highlighted in terms of how companies are approaching these regulatory frameworks and also the challenges that they're potentially seeing in terms of, when it comes to it, enforcement as well. That quite a few different challenges. And it's something that is going to be top of mind for folks as we move into 2025 and beyond. A couple things that I was a bit surprised that were not talked about, or I think could potentially be on the table for further discussion, was around diversifying sourcing for critical minerals in green tech. That those supply chains, what's being sourced and what is coming up from the green tech space didn't really get the attention that, I think it really should. I think that green tech is certainly something that is foundational for many organizations in terms of their decarbonization strategy and how materials are sourced. And that supply chain as a whole, thinking about scope 3 emissions in particular, is something that should really potentially be evaluated in the future. Something else that wasn't brought up, and I think could or should have potentially been discussed throughout the World Economic Forum that occurred at Davos, was the changing perception of ESG in the US. I think it almost feels like a bit of, an elephant in the room that especially sustainability professionals and folks that we engage and talk with are always a little weary to bring up ESG as a perception. I myself, for fact, have switched to using the term sustainability much more than ESG, just because of the undertones that can sometimes be politicized or brought up by ESG and the movement that we sometimes see there as well. What I'd like to do next is be a bit bold in an opinion and what took place here, even if it isn't a positive opinion. One thing for me is AI's potential to change the world and what we are constantly hearing and almost been promised in some instances. It has been a little bit less than anticipated. I think this is something that's really, I think there's plenty of AI tooling and things out there that do show a lot of promise, or just hasn't happened, especially in the sustainability space, as quickly as some people have anticipated or thought. Another thing too is the need to address economic challenges. I think there's examples like the semiconductor trade wars we're potentially seeing, attracting investment into the sustainability ESG space, and what that looks like. I think is a topic that it definitely warrants more discussion, disclosure, and thought leadership around. One last kind of key theme that I'll hit on before we wrap up today is uh, around the growing appetite for both public-private partnerships and intra-industry alliances. There were quite a few topics and what was highlighted around like how various partnerships are forming around the sustainability movement and ESG, DEI as well, and how successful these can be. I think from a scale and impact lens, these types of partnerships, especially when you're working with multiple industry groups or multiple organizations, again, public, private, that can really move the needle on a large scale. That by pulling these groups together, it can have a really strong impact on what is actually being done and how we move the needle. I think that was a key topic that came up a couple times, even just with the highlighting of these various groups and partnerships. That is something certainly to explore more and something to likely to see more of this in the future. And I think it's a great way to again, move the needle on a much larger scale with a large group of either organizations or partnerships and alliances from various industries. That'll wrap it up for the recap on Davos and what happened at Davos 2024. Thanks again for listening in, and we'll see you in the next one.
Sustain.Life is the leading and most comprehensive sustainability software on the market. To learn how we can help your company measure its emissions and take climate action, go to Sustain.Life. Don't forget to like and subscribe to this show on our YouTube channel or your favorite podcast platform. Thanks for tuning in. See you next week.